For that introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here on this Friday evening. Like Patricia said, my name is Liz Olivas. I am the tutoring center manager at the Mission del Paso campus, and I am currently also the Student Support Services Program interim manager. But today I'm here to talk to you more about my volunteer work. I am a volunteer with Mutt Dog Rescue. So this PowerPoint is going to discuss the ins and outs of animal rescue in El Paso, and specifically for you students, how you can boost your resume and gain experience by volunteering, either with my rescue or with any other animal rescue organizations in town. And as we go along, I'm going to showcase pictures of some of our animals in each slide, just so that you can get a little bit of insight on the types of cases that we help with. Okay, so having said that, I'm going to move over to the first slide. Just a little bit about Mutt Love Dog Rescue. It was established 8 years ago already, so it's been a while. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. That means that we do not make money. It's run by volunteers, and we do all of this without any remuneration. And the mission of Mutt Love Dog Rescue is to spread awareness regarding the problem of animal abuse, neglect, and breeding here in the El Paso Juarez community, and to emphasize the importance of vaccinating, sterilizing, and microchipping all pets. Now, Mutt Love, the target of this dog rescue is very specific. We specifically seek out to help medically needy dogs and cats in the El Paso region. And they can be medically needy for a number of reasons. So, for example, it can be stray animals that animal services or community members found out on the streets. And as I'm sure you all know, stray animals are a big problem here in our community. We also partner with animal services, and we get dogs and cats from them sometimes as well, depending on the situation. Animal services often doesn't have the full resources to save every single dog or cat that is in a medical crisis. So if we're able to, we get those animals from them and we bring them into our rescue. We also get owner surrenders. We are contacted a lot by the community to bring in animals that people can no longer care for different situations. Oftentimes also dogs and cats are turned in to veterinarians if the person is not able to afford the vet bill, depending on what the medical situation is, and we get called in to assist with that if possible. We do assist with hoarding cases. Animal hoarding is one of those hidden things in the community that a lot of people don't know that is a problem or that it happens, but it does. So we do help the medical cases that come out of hoarding situations. And of course, we also get community members directly messaging us asking for help with rehoming their pets or with vet bills, things like that. And our operations are 100% foster home based. So what that means is that we don't have a main headquarters. We don't have a building where you can go in and look at all of our animals. All of our animals reside in individual homes throughout the city. We have about 20 volunteer fosters, and we have 9 volunteer administrators. And again, this is a nonprofit. It is 100% funded by individual donations. We don't have any major corporate donors, or we usually don't receive, these big dollar amount donations. Everything that we do is funded 99% of the time by those small donations from people such as yourselves out in the community. I'm talking like, if somebody can donate $5, $10, $20, that makes up the bulk of the money that we get in. And currently, just to give you an idea, we have 35 dogs and 4 cats under the dog rescue. And so we try to not take in animals if we are not having adoptions made, only because of the shortage of homes where we can put these animals. So just regarding the photos here, on the left we have Morgan. She came from Animal Services. As you see, she is missing an eye. She has currently been a foster dog for about 5 years. She is still looking for her forever home, and she's really sweet. She's really rambunctious, and just having one eye does not stop her at all. um, and then on the right side, we have Gorda. She is one of the few cats that we have in the rescue. She is also in a foster home. She has been a long term foster. She is pretty healthy, but she has not found her forever home. And speaking of cats, one of the new partnerships that the rescue has had is that when we bring in a pregnant cat, once she gives birth to her cats and they get weaned, we are now partnering with the zoo. So those kittens go into the El Paso Zoo Cat Adoption Center. So they can, if you go to the zoo, and you'll see the area, the center where all the cats are up for adoption. Those are our kittens that you can adopt directly from the zoo. So that's a nice little partnership that we now have. And I forgot to mention, but if you all have questions throughout this presentation, feel free to raise your hand and we can address them in the moment, or you are more than welcome to wait until the end of the presentation and I can address any questions at that time also. So having said that, the main question that people ask is, who do you help or how do you choose which animals to take into the rescue? And the short answer is that we help the dogs and cats that are the most in need of saving within the medical cases framework. So they can be most in need for a variety of reasons. So, for example, we might bring in a dog that is very unattractive because maybe they're missing a leg or they had an injury, that left them with a permanent scar, things like that, that people would usually not want to adopt. We bring them in. We also pick up animals that have been at animal services for a long time. Being at animal services is stressful especially for the dogs. So sometimes to mitigate those mental health issues for the dogs, we do remove them and we put them into a home if we have a foster home available. We also get dogs that are not picked up by other rescues. For example, there are some rescues in town that only focus on specific breeds, or they only focus on bringing in pets that are very likely to be adopted. They're small, they're cute, everybody's going to want them. And these other dogs that are not small and cute, they get left behind, so we bring them in. We also have older dogs and senior dogs and cats that haven't found a home or that have been returned. One recent example, we have a small dog, his name is Max, and he was adopted out from the rescue at 6 months old. And then now, 6 years later, this past summer, he was returned to us because his family no longer wanted him. So he's an old man now, but he's small and he's cute and he minds his own business. So hopefully we can find him another home to live out, his final years. So we do take in seniors as well. We also take in dogs that have behavioral issues. So for example, some dogs are very anxious, they have separation anxiety, or they were never trained how to use a kennel, so they get destructive. Issues like that, we bring them in and we try to train them so that they can be adoptable. Obviously, we take in sick and injured dogs, whether it's a chronic illness or if it's, an illness that can be treated with medication and maybe people can't afford those medications, things like that. And specifically for our pets with chronic illnesses, we even have sort of hospice dogs sometimes. Right now we have one, his name is Fergus, and he has cancer, but he is in remission and he's a long-term foster, but since he's not healthy, he's probably going to remain with his foster family for the foreseeable future. So those are the types of cases that we take on. And regarding the pictures that you see here on the screen, on the left you have Mouse. He is a Great Dane, and he was healthy when he came into us, but Great Danes tend to have a lot of medical conditions or issues that come up later on in their life. So that's why we brought him in to do some preventive work and see if we could get him adoptable. In the middle, we have Cyrano. You'll see more of his story later on, so try to remember his face the way it looks there right now. That's him when he first came out of surgery on his nose. And then on the right, we have Oksana. She was a Doberman that her family didn't take her to the vet or didn't address her medical issues. So she ended up very skinny. So she came in to us, and she had to get healthy with the rescue first, and then she was eventually transferred out to a rescue in Colorado. So yes, Ms. Lovewood, Ehrlichia is one of the illnesses that we do see a lot that sometimes people cannot afford the treatment for. Okay, so this slide discusses the need for rescues or for rescue organizations in this area. So just to give you a rundown of what the situation is in our community, just to be better informed. So last year, Animal Services had almost 800 animals pass away while in their care, and they did have to euthanize almost 2,000. But having said that, because those numbers sound bleak, right? The euthanasia rate was actually 24% or less every month. So what that means is that most of the animals who entered Animal Services either stayed there until they got adopted, or they continue to be there because they haven't found their home. And they do take in about 17,000 animals per year on average. So that's a lot. And actually this year they're on track to process about 20,000 just this year alone. So once you think about, the massive number, the thousands that they take in, the fact that the euthanasia rate is so low is pretty impressive. And yes, to address the comment in the chat, so Animal Services is on track to become a no-kill shelter, but it is not quite there yet. So the current policy is that they only euthanize animals when they are declining, right? For example, if their illness is so bad and the vets don't have the resources to treat them, or they can't do the surgery, instead of having the dog, just stay there in the kennel suffering, they do have to humanely euthanize them. Or if mentally, if the dog is too stressed out and they're beginning to act out, they're becoming aggressive, or they are retreating into themselves, you can think of it almost like a human inmate in solitary confinement. It does affect dogs in a similar way. So if it gets to that point, sometimes they do make the call to euthanize them, again, to minimize the suffering that these animals go through. And maybe in a few years, we'll be at full no euthanasia, no kill. But right now at this point, they're not there yet.
That sounds better.
And let's see. So regarding the rescue itself, we get about 40 requests a month to take in pets. Obviously, we cannot take in every single request that comes in. It depends on our resources, if we have a foster home available, if we have funds available, maybe to put the dog in a doggy daycare while we figure something out. That comes into play as well. And having said that, it's interesting that other regions across the country have the opposite problem. They actually have way too many people wanting pets and not enough stray animals. So we do take advantage of that. So we do transport. I'll talk about transporting pets a little bit later on in the presentation. But that's basically the way that the situation is here in our area right now. And Animal Services, to address the situation, they have been expanding to accommodate the number of animals that they can take in. So you might be most familiar with the main location on Fred Wilson. Some people are not aware that there is a branch in the Lower Valley, the Mission Valley Adoption Center, which is on Socorro Road. And then we also have the Tales at the Times facility, which is downtown in the old El Paso Times building. And this last bullet point, I'm sorry, it shouldn't read coming soon. It's already here. It's already open. There is a new shelter branch at the former Moorhead Middle School property. So that one is already open. For those of you who might live on the west side or in Central, you can also go there and see the animals available and do adoptions from there. And finally, One part that unfortunately is also part of the rescue situation are animal cruelty investigations. So for those investigations, you do have El Paso County Animal Welfare that gets involved. They go out and they look at everything from, people being cruel to cats and dogs, regular household pets, all the way up to farm animals, horses, goats, cows, etc. And you also have the Animal Services Animal Protection Field Operations, and those are the officers that you see going out either picking up strays or picking up deceased pets from the side of the road and conducting investigations when there is an accusation of animal cruelty or neglect. So that's basically the rescue situation currently here in town. Here in this picture, you see Catzilla. She was brought to us from Animal Services. She was born with a cleft palate with deformed front legs, and she developed aspiration pneumonia while at Animal Services because she was out in the cold, exposed to water, and so we brought her in because she wasn't going to thrive at the shelter. Okay, now let me tell you a little bit about the rescue process. Um, and this is just to give you an idea of how rescues operate in general. Some have slightly different policies, some do some things and not do others, or they do things a little bit differently. But in general, this is how it works. So the first step, obviously, is to take custody of the animal. You can't do anything if you don't have the dog or cat with you. So that might entail picking it up off the street, picking it up from Animal Services, from the veterinarian, removing them from a house where they're being neglected or harmed. So you take charge of the animal. And the second step is to arrange, provide, and pay for veterinary care. Now, I do want to be very clear with you all because I don't want you to misconstrue the situation. So the rescue, specifically Mutt Love, if you are a foster, you don't have to spend any of your money on any of the things that the dog or cat might need. So the rescue pays for all the food, for all the supplies, any veterinary costs, any medication, anything like that while you're fostering. So as a foster person, you don't have to pay for any of that. Obviously, some of our fosters do give donations, because they want to help a little bit more, but our fosters are not expected to put any money up front. And let's see. So the question is, how do they become a foster? So you can become a foster by reaching out to us directly. I'll provide our information later on in the presentation, so you can foster with us whenever you want, for as long as you want. It can be temporary fosters, which can be about like a week, a month, something like that. Or you can be a long-term foster, which means that you have the pet in your home until they get adopted. And the second question, thank you, Patricia, is do you take donations of pet supplies? Yes, we are always taking donations of dog food, cat food, kitty litter, even toys and beds. We actually have a storage where we put any overflow items that we might have. And yeah, we always accept basically any type of supplies to care for dogs and cats. Okay, so step number 3, and this one can be the longest step. This step consists of making the dog adoptable. What we mean when we say somebody is adoptable is if they are socialized, right? If they get along with people, with kids, we have to make sure that they are kennel trained, because kennel training is very important for the safety of people, for the safety of the pet, and to be ready in case of emergency situations. For example, if you might have to evacuate or things like that, so little situations that people might not think of in the long run. We also want to make sure that the animal is potty trained, that they're desensitized, to loud noises or to scary things in their environment, because especially for dogs, an untrained pet is almost impossible to adopt. So it's very difficult, for example, if you were to show up to an adoption event with a dog that's just barking nonstop, rambunctious, or jumping on people, nobody's going to want to adopt that type of a pet. So we do spend a lot of time training them and making them as adoptable as possible. Step 4 is obviously informing the public of the available dogs and cats. And we do that by going to adoption events. So you'll see us, for example, at the fountains, you'll see us at restaurants, you'll see us at farmers markets. More recently, we've collaborated with Mutt's Cantina on the west side, which is a new dog-friendly restaurant bar. So you will see us out there constantly. And we do also post information on the adoptable animals on our social media, being our Instagram and our Facebook. So you can always browse there to see the adoptable animals. And of course, you can always message us to see if we have any particular type of dog or cat that you're looking for. Another thing that we do, step 5, is that we do carry out home checks for people interested in adopting one of our pets. A home check is very basic. We try to be as unintrusive as possible. It can either be done in person or it can be done online through Teams or Zoom. And we basically just check out the physical environment that the dog would be living in to make sure that there's no hazardous materials, that they're not going to be able to slip out under a fence and run into the street and get run over, that the home is, adequate for a dog or cat. So we do those home checks. Some rescues don't do them. That's everybody's prerogative, and that's when we start the foster to adopt process. And again, all of this is to ensure the safety of the pet and that the pet will be compatible with the family. So during this process, we do what is called a trial adoption. So you keep the animal in your home maybe for a couple of weeks to give the dog enough time to get settled. And once you know that, yes, I do want to keep this dog, he's meshing in very well with my family, that's when we move on to step 6, which is processing the adoption contract and the fee. And just very quickly, in case some of you might be thinking of fostering or adopting or fostering to adopt, usually the fee for all of our dogs is $100. But for the rest of the year, so from now until December 31st, all of our dog adoptions are $0. And usually for cats, it's $25. And these $100, we really don't make any money out of this because for every dog that we adopt out, for example, we spend an average of $370 on all of their vet bills, on getting them any medication they may need, making sure they're spayed or neutered. So we don't make any money on this, but we also want to make the fee something reasonable so that doesn't discourage people from adopting. And I know there was a question, where can they view the animals available? So you can always check out our Instagram and our Facebook pages, and I can type in the name so that you can look us up on Facebook. There we go. And then our Instagram, so that you can look us up and you'll be able to see pictures and videos of all of the adoptable animals that we have right now. Thank you for asking that question. And lastly, step 7 is we do encourage all adopters to join Mutt Love Forever After. That is a specific Facebook page where we can keep track of all the animals that have been adopted out. So it's really cool to see how the animals are thriving in their new homes. And now some information on the dogs that you see here on the screen. On the top there with Baby Yoda is Baby Yoda. He was a dog that came from a hoarding case, and as soon as he got over, he had a little bit of an eye infection. As soon as he got over that, he was sent to the Humane Society of Utah, and he was adopted within a week. So that was one of the really quick success stories. And on the bottom, those two twins there, they came from a hoarding case in Northeast El Paso. So they were, they had a couple of stomach bugs. They really needed a good grooming and a cleaning because they weren't living in a very sanitary situation. So we brought them in, we got them the help that they needed, and they actually got adopted out here in town. But a lot of the dogs from that hoarding case ended up being transported throughout the country to different rescues. And lastly, on the top, that before and after set of pictures, that is McLeod. The before picture is how we got them. I believe he was with us in 2017. He had a big tumor, as you can see. He was very matted. He was dirty. He needed help. And we were able to fundraise to get him the surgery that he needed. We took him to the groomer. He did need a little bit of socialization because he wasn't used to going potty outside. But that's his after picture right there. And he's driving with his family still. He's getting up there in age, but he's still doing really well.
Go ahead and change. Yeah, go ahead and change.
Okay, moving on to really the meat and potatoes of this presentation. So having said, all of that, the backstories of the different animals, this is how being a volunteer can help you as a student or as somebody trying to boost your resume. So there's rescues really use a lot of different skills that sometimes people may not realize. And so this is what you can help, not just us, but you can help any other rescue with doing things like this because everybody operates in very similar fashion. So you can help with social media management and public relations. And when I say public relations, it's pretty serious. Like we have had to give interviews to the media, so it does involve at a pretty professional level, public relations. You can also help with customer service, especially in dealing with foster families or giving information to people who are thinking of adopting, to interacting with the public at events, all of that good fun stuff. That can also go on your resume. We do keep a database of all of our pets, so we actually also do database administration, and this is something that I had to learn when I came into the rescue. It's not a skill that I had from my job, because we keep inventory of all the dogs that we have, who has been adopted, who has passed away. We need to input their shot records information, their microchip information, because as a nonprofit, we do need to keep track of all of this. So that's a big part of it too. We do incorporate web design and graphic design into our operations because we develop our logos, as you can see here on this slide. We do have a website that we need help managing. So those are skills that you can also hone with the rescue. You can also help with administrative assistance regarding phone calls, to veterinarians, to animal services, responding to emails, things like that. Accounting and fundraising is also a big one. We are a nonprofit, like I said, so we don't have, a whole lot of money a lot of the time, but we do need to keep records for the IRS of, every donation, every dollar that we receive from the community, we need to account for it and show exactly what services we paid for, be it food, shots, veterinary care, surgeries. All of that also needs to get recorded. And of course, we need to keep track of our fundraising, who we get money from, the amounts, all of that good stuff. You can also help with networking. And networking with the dog rescue, something that I have learned is that you really find allies in all kinds of places. And in this community, we have been fortunate that a lot of small businesses here in El Paso have been very supportive of us. So for example, we have partnered with Sun City Sawdust, which is a new DIY studio on the west side. On the east side, we partner with the Yard Patio and Beer Garden. At a more corporate national level, we do collaborate with PetSmart for the National Adoption Weekend. So sometimes you will see us inside PetSmart or you'll see us outside at the outdoor events. We do collaborate with Prime Med Pharmacy, Chef Jam's Kitchen, with Twin Peaks for some of their farmers markets and pop-ups. So there is a lot of networking, and you can use those to your advantage in your own career. You start the relationship through the rescue, but then you already have that contact established if you need it for your career or to advance academically. Um, so that goes along with managing partnerships. All those partnerships, we do need to foster them and keep them healthy. Make sure we don't lose track of our contacts, that we keep all of our commitments. So that helps a lot too. And we always do need creative and technical writers. On the creative side, we have our more creative volunteers come up with our fundraiser posts, especially on social media, right? Because we need to really convey the point across of what we need and how the community can help. And for technical writing, if anybody out here is taking a technical writing class or they might need it for their degrees, we do employ technical writing with all of our forms, our adoption forms, our fostering, the vet requests, the communications with the veterinarians, with animal services. So all of that comes into play as well. And lastly, management is also a big one. You do learn to manage people because we have a set of people that are volunteers. We have a different set of people that are just fosters or people that just help us at events. So those are different. You pick up different management skills with that. So now the dogs here on this slide, on the left is Tolly. She was one of the dogs that came from Animal Services. She was pretty old and ill, and she was with her foster for about 6 months, and she did pass away earlier this year. So we included her on our Dia de los Muertos ofrenda. The middle picture there of all those Chihuahua puppies, they were actually found under a bridge in a kennel, like somebody placed them in a kennel under the bridge, and somebody from the community found them, and they brought them in, and we were able to adopt out 4 of them here in the city, and the last 2 went to a rescue in Dallas. And lastly, on the right, those are 2 of my pandemic buddies back when we were working from home. The little one is Yoda, whose picture you saw earlier, and the big girl on the left is Nike, and she was one of our dogs who had a tumor, but we fundraised for her surgery. She recovered, and she was with me for over 2 years. Not because she wasn't healthy, she fully recovered, but she was very loud at adoption events, so people were a little bit afraid of her. So her sweetheart side didn't really come out at the adoption events. But eventually she did find her forever family. So that one was a happy ending. Okay, now here are some notable cases just so that you guys really see what goes into helping some of these animals. The first one is Güera. That's the Chihuahua on the top left that you see. She had a compressed spine. It was a severe spinal injury. We don't know how it happened. And basically her family couldn't afford the veterinary care to help her. So they reached out to us, and before we took her in, we reached out to the community because it was a lot of money. It was almost a $10,000 surgery. We did not have $10,000 in the bank. So we fundraised with the help of FitFam and the news, and we were able to raise the full amount for her. And she is still in foster care, but she is up for adoption. So she's good to go. She's a little fragile, but she's ready to be adopted. And then on the bottom left, we have Francesca the Frenchie. She went viral for a little bit. Also, she is a dog. If you heard the news article over the summer, when we found her, or when she came into the rescue, she was the dog that was buried alive by her previous owner. And then somebody, found her. They took her to Animal Services, and then Animal Services handed her over to us. And I remember the first time I did this presentation, I couldn't give a lot of information on her because the investigation was still ongoing. So we had kind of a gag order. We couldn't talk about it. But now the investigation is done. Her former owner did face criminal charges, and she did get adopted. So she is doing much better, and she's doing well now. Who else? Delilah Bell. So Delilah Bell is the one here on the bottom right in that weird wooden contraption that you see. She is a purebred Great Dane. And if you know anything about Great Danes, you know that they do have a lot of issues. Oh, thank you there for the pointer. That's useful. So yeah, so she had mega esophagus, which is common in Great Danes, and she was also born with something called a persistent aortic arch. So basically, her esophagus was being squished by her aortic arch, and she also required a very expensive surgery. So we took her in because one of our fosters is a Great Dane expert, and it took us a little while to fundraise, but we were able to raise $7,500 for her surgery, again, thanks to the community. And so she's still using her chair there. That's a chair for her to eat that you see her sitting in. But she is doing much better, and that issue has now been resolved. So that's Delilah Bell. And then we have had two hoarding cases that stand out here in El Paso. So the first one was in central El Paso. It was an older gentleman who didn't have family looking out for him, and he accumulated 40 dogs. So obviously, one older gentleman trying to take care of 40 dogs is not going to end well. Things got out of control for him. So Animal Services asked us to intervene. So between us and Animal Services and a private donor, we were able to get most of these animals spayed, neutered. Some of them had medical issues that we had to help them with. And the dogs got adopted out or removed and placed into other homes throughout the city. And this tends to happen for hoarding cases when animal hoarding specifically happens when you have two dogs and they're not spayed or they're not neutered, and the mom dog gets pregnant, they have puppies, and then those puppies have puppies, and then those puppies have puppies, and before you know it, you have your house full of dogs, and it just started with two dogs that were not fixed. So that can snowball out of control really quickly. That's why we really emphasize spaying and neutering your pets, whether it be dogs or cats or rabbits, whatever. And as far as Mutt Love is concerned, we do not adopt out any dogs or cats until they are fixed, just so that to do our part to prevent that problem. Now the hoarding case in the Northeast, that one was from years ago before the pandemic, and that one was a regular size house with about 75 little dogs, Chihuahuas, poodle mixes, terrier mixes, those types of dogs. So that one did take a lot of coordination with the Humane Society, with Animal Services, with other rescues. Basically, all of these dogs were distributed to anybody who was willing to foster them. The good thing is that since they were small and they were cute, they were very easy to adopt out, and we did transport a lot of them to other rescues in Colorado, here in Texas, and in California. So that is a problem that happens. So keep an eye out on your neighbors. Help them help care for their pets, because this is a problem, and sometimes we don't realize it. If you don't know your neighbors, or if you don't keep track of what your relatives are up to in their homes, things like that can be a problem. And lastly, we have Cyrano, which I showed you earlier, right after his surgery. This picture in the bottom middle is when he was first picked up from us by us from Animal Services. So he was dirty. He had a broken jaw, and the people who had him didn't take care of it for whatever reason, be it financial or something else. So the infection ate into the cartilage and bone on the upper part of his face. So he did have to have surgery. And that is what he looks like now on the top right. So it looks like he has a massive underbite, but it's just because the top part of his face ended up way smaller because of all the bone that had to be removed. So obviously he doesn't look normal. He's not your typical cute dog, and he's huge. He goes up to your waist size, but he's a big baby. But when we take him to adoption events, he's not the most conventionally attractive dog. So he has been with us for several years, but he is available for adoption in case anybody is interested. So now that you know the ins and outs, the types of cases that we take on, the general overview of the animal rescue situation in El Paso, if you're interested in joining, these are some of the organizations that you can partner with. Again, we would love to have you in Mutt Love, but everybody needs help. All the rescues need help. If you're closer to the west side, you can volunteer with the Animal Rescue League of El Paso, Stick House Sanctuary, and Second Chance Wildlife Rescue. They don't help dogs and cats. They help more wildlife, squirrels, raccoons, goats, chickens, ducks, etc. They are always taking volunteers as well. We do have Mutt Love Juarez. We have somebody who used to volunteer with us here in El Paso, but now she lives over there. So she decided to branch out, and she helps stray dogs in Juarez. We also have Unidogs in Juarez. We have APRODEA, which is Asociación Pro Defensa Animal. They help animals in Juarez. You can also help with Sun City Cats. They're the biggest organization that handles the trap, neuter, release program to fix cats. And as we know, there's a pretty big stray cat problem here in town. And the only way really to fix it is to make sure that these cats we trap them, you spay or neuter them, and then you release them back into their neighborhood where they're from. And that's how that problem is addressed. If you don't have like a set time, like a set amount of time that you can volunteer, there's different things that you can do. On Sundays, rescue runners go to animal services and they get dogs out and they take them for a walk. So that's, like a 1-2 hour commitment. That's something that you can do. If you have more time or if you like road trips, you can help us with transports. That's one of my favorite things to do in rescue because I get to go on a road trip with dogs, and you're helping them get to somewhere where they either already have a family lined up or where they have a better chance of getting adopted quickly. It can be something very small, like giving dogs a ride to the vet for shots or to the groomer if they need to get groomed. It's something, a quick errand that can be done. Another thing that you can do if you don't want to be so directly involved with animal rescue is we encourage people to attend city council meetings and really speak up in regards to the problem of the animal situation here in town with all the stray dogs, all the dogs being surrendered. And you can also provide ideas on maybe how we can better tackle this problem. And lastly, we have the Borderland Animal Welfare Collaborative, which is an organization, it's an umbrella made up of the different rescues here in town, as well as animal services and city council members. So the public is encouraged to also participate and provide ideas and feedback as to what we're doing right, what can be done better, all of that kind of stuff. And for the pictures here on the left, we have Delilah. That was her at one of her vet appointments. That was just a cute picture that I wanted to include. In the middle, we have Jackson. He was also one of my pandemic fosters. He had heartworm. He unfortunately did succumb to it, but we took him in because the heartworm treatment is very expensive. So if you have dogs, those of you in the chat, do make sure you have their heartworm preventative up to date, because if you don't and your dog gets heartworm, it does affect them physically pretty significantly, and it is a very pricey treatment that may not work. So yeah. And then on the right is Kendall. She is one of our Great Danes that also came into the rescue. There was a year where it was 5 or 6 Great Danes that were abandoned throughout the city. We don't know if it was related or not. But again, since Great Danes tend to have medical issues with their hips, with their megaesophagus, that's why we brought her in. So yeah, these are some of the ways that you can volunteer either with Mutt Love or with any of these other great organizations. So having said that, here is my contact information. You're more than welcome to reach out to me if you have questions. You can also contact the dog rescue directly. There's our Facebook, there's our Instagram, there's our email. And on behalf of, here we have in the pictures, we have Blackbeard, Biscuit, Jackson, Francesca, Trixie, and Nike. Thank you very much for attending this presentation. And now, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Okay, so if anybody has any questions, go ahead and feel free to either use your mic or you can also use the chat box. So just go ahead and type in any question. Okay. So, I mean, for now, thank you, Liz, for the wonderful presentation. We loved your presentation last time, and we love that you're back and that you're able to present with us again. Not only Ms. Liz, but we would like to thank everyone for being a wonderful audience and for coming in today. So Liz, there is a question. Where do we drop off donations?
Oh, okay. Thank you. So for donation, since we don't have a central location, what we do when the community wants to give us, like dog food or dog beds or any other donations of items, you can email us or contact us on social media and we can make arrangements to pick them up either directly from your house, or we probably have a foster on your side of town where you can drop off items at their house, or you can even drop them off at our storage. It's basically whatever the community member finds easiest, we will accommodate and pick up those donations.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, if you guys want to go ahead and save this page, take a picture so that if you or anybody you know would like to do any donations, I mean, this is a great organization to do it to. So again, yeah, we would like to thank everyone for being an audience, and please remember that these sessions are recorded. So if you'd like to review or share anything from this presentation, those recorded sessions can definitely help. We are going to share the link for our playlist, so you can go ahead and find this video there, and maybe you can even share it to somebody that you know would love it. So we have shared the Tejano Passport link so that everyone can receive their points for coming in today. And before you all leave, we want to share the Tejano virtual events that we will have next week. So next week at 11 a.m. with Happy Math Hour, Happy Math Hour, sorry, we'll cover 13, 14 linear and non-linear systems, and Math 1324 will cover the Exam 3 review. Our 1 p.m. session next week will be with EPCC Student Club. We hope to see you all again for Tejano virtual events, and we hope everyone has a restful weekend. Thank you again, Ms. Liz, for everything, and we hope that you have people contacting you and just helping more. So thank you all for coming in today.